And on the 18th of that month, we walked into the doors of Seacoast Church, and our lives have not been the same.
The first time I came into Seacoast,
And it just
I knew this place was different.
has blessed me so much.
Through this church,
I heard God for the first
through the
time.
ministry,
Seacoast
we
is a
have
family
found
to me.
totally
Seacoast showed me that God is real.
so at peace.
It's a different type of
Healed my
church.
life.
I came to that service and I will never
future.
If I hadn't
forget
had
like this
Seacoast,
before.
I don't know how we got through it.
Seacoast has changed our lives forever.
We just crossed a barrier at Seacoast. 25 years. It's a major hurdle, major accomplishment. I want to give you some defining moments of what it means to be Seacoast over this first 25 years. I want you to remember when. I don't believe in coincidence. I do believe in providence. I felt like the Lord kind of led me that this was the journey I was on, that He would grace me in a powerful way with His presence and His power. I knew that God was going to do something special, but I never could have imagined this. What started as a thought, an idea, a calling, after 25 years has become a church, 12 campuses, a church planting movement, hundreds of thousands of people, an amazing thing. And God may be saying something to you today. Say, respond to me. The essence of Seacoast's story is community.
I would define community as true friendships. Getting around other people, especially in the faith, that inspire you to grow in your relationship.
That we are as passionate about our relationships with one another as we are our relationship with Christ.
It requires being real. It requires forgiveness.
Community is this wonderful responsibility we have to one another to do life together and to accomplish the mission of God together. That's Seacoast.
Good morning. Welcome to Seacoast. I'm so glad you're here. Let's stand together as we worship this morning.
Has been there for us through
That love and support
hard
for
times.
me.
I've just learned to love the Lord so much more.
Draws
The most
what I
amazing
met in this
experience.
church.
I remember when I was a kid, we used to go to Grandpa's house. Just kind of sit around on the couch. He'd sit there, we'd be all around him, maybe on the floor, some of us on his lap. And we'd say, Grandpa, tell us when. And he'd tell us a story. He told us who we were as Surratts. Yeah, there have been many times in my life where I've wondered if God got the right guy. And the jury's still out.
It is pretty ironic that God would use a family that was known as some of the worst of the worst.
My grandmother one summer, when I was about 10 years old, gave me a book about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and said, "These are your people."
Mary Surratt, she was convicted in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln as a co-conspirator. She was the first woman hung by the United States government. That's something to be proud of as a family.
My grandfather was the meanest man in town. was a bootlegger in western Oklahoma during the Depression.
And he'd gotten a few gunfights along the way. I met him only once or twice, but he did show me the gunshot scars. It's interesting to me, though, that one choice by one man could change the trajectory of an entire family.
He was drunk, and he said he had an experience with God, kind of like Paul on the road to Damascus, which sobered him up. And they joined the little church that started there. And then ultimately he became a preacher and planted small churches all over western Oklahoma. They fled the Dust Bowl to Southern California like a lot of Okies, and so he began to plant churches out there also. My father became a pastor, and then in his latter years of ministry, he was a missionary to India. I was very respectful of men who were in full-time ministry, but it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a rock star.
He was into this band. I loved going and hearing him play, and sort of I was a groupie, I guess, of sorts.
Our band was playing in a large church in Chicago at actually a youth rally. And the band member said, you know, somebody should say something at the end of our playing. And they said, well, it should be you. I said, well, why is that? And they said, well, your dad's a preacher. So at the end, I did say something. And it seemed like God used it. Kids listened. And so I called my girlfriend at the time, who's now still my girlfriend, but she's my wife also. And I said, you know, I don't know if this rock thing is going to make it, but I might be a preacher someday.
I just knew he would do more than that. He would be a pastor or an evangelist or something, you know.
I began by being a youth pastor because that's kind of where you start. And it didn't work real well. I was fired in my first 3 jobs in ministry. You know, irreverent was a term that I thought kind of described me to some degree. Just a different way of seeing life and God, and maybe not the typical viewpoint that you might see from a pastor or a preacher. My mom said that everybody's good for something, even if it's just to be a bad example. And sometimes that's the way it feels. But it's amazing who God will use. Well, good morning. It's good to see you today. I want to welcome those of you who are joining us right now. Tell you what we're going to do today. We're in a series called White Flag, and we're going to take a time out.
South Carolina.
The whole time of being
I had been
Christian.
praying about this, just been our home, and truly felt loved.
When I was a little boy, traveling in a moving van across the country to move to this strange land where people used words like y'all, we didn't understand it. And I can remember thinking, why are we doing this? Why are we uprooting our family? Why Seacoast?
Debbie and I were on staff at Northwood Assembly in North Charleston.
We had moved here and had taken a position at another church to kind of get away from pastoring because we were tired, we were worn out, and we had 4 children.
That's kind of where I was when Seacoast started. But there just became a sense of knowing deep in my heart that God had called me to plant a church.
And then it was an adventure to see where we were going.
Now, when we started the church, we decided to use an obnoxious marketing campaign. We got a phone book and we called homes at dinner time, which is, you know, everybody loves that. People had some real opinions on what church was about and why they didn't attend. And so at the end of that, we would say, give us a chance. It's going to be a different kind of church. We'd love to have you come. The church started April the 3rd, 1988. The church started in a movie theater. We'd have to go in every week and clean the roaches out of the popcorn and the gummy bears off the floor so the kids in the nursery wouldn't eat them. We had 340 people that first week. So we were off and running. That was the beginning. We did night services a few times at a country club, in a school, and in a dance studio, which was interesting because it was only about 25 feet wide and maybe 40 feet long, but they had mirrors along the walls, and so it made it look like we had twice as many people. I kind of liked it there. At times it seems there's no way, but God, you can make a way. How many of you started coming there? Byron and Gene, I see, oh, there's several.
I was 8 years old for the first service. And so for the first 10 years or so, I was just baggage along the way. But I just was able to watch and see this thing unfold. I love the cinema years because, again, I was a kid. We would come through after church was over, and, you know, they had the chairs that flip back up. All of the adults' change would fall out of their pocket, and so we'd go get the quarters.
Put them in the offering the next week?
No, we would play video games in the lobby. And
okay. There's going to be a revival here. We're going to see 500 people. People's lives are going to be changed. Soon there'll be 1,000. In fact, I called my best friend growing up, Terry Hilgers. I said, Terry, you got to quit. You got to resign. You got to come out. Join me. I can't handle all these people. I thought attendance would grow. If negative growth is growth, it did very well. The attendance never really grew for 3 years. Some people say those were the good old days. No, those were just the old days. I can remember people coming into my office and saying, you know, this is not what we bargained for. We don't like the music, or, you know, it doesn't really minister to our family. And,
so how does that make you feel?
The question was, would we be faithful to the vision? And it was tough.
Finally, it probably felt like years and years and years before numbers started to happen, and we began to experience a little bit of growth. And I remember one day you started to have a vision that maybe God could actually do something significant through this church body, that this might actually work. And then I know there was a moment at a groundbreaking ceremony where you said some pretty outrageous things.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you'll say when you don't have a script. We continued to meet through that time, but I just knew I couldn't put my finger on it. I thought about a new church. I wanted to do that. Ultimately, we bought a piece of ground where we are now, and we broke ground on our original campus at the beginning of 1991. It was just an incredible day. We cleared a piece of land. We took the chalk that you map out football fields, and we tried to draw a picture of what the auditorium would look like. I remember getting up to really capture the moment.
I want to tell you something. I feel it and I sense it, that when we are long gone, there will be tens of thousands of people who will come to this piece of ground, and God's going to change their life because people like you had a vision to do this thing.
There was something inside of me that knew that God was going to do something special here. Now we're 5 years into it. We've got the same number of people as we had that first Sunday. We've finally grown back, and I'm thinking, how in the world are we going to handle all these people? Got to understand, I was from a small church. So I went to the beach, And I took a Bible and a notepad, and I said, God, if nothing were impossible and your will was being done perfectly on earth at Seacoast as it was being done in heaven, what would that look like? And I just began to write what it might possibly look like. Well, it happened. By the year 2000, we were doing 5 services, and there were 2,000 people coming.
And then 2001, we're reaching probably over 2,000 people at that point, and the natural solution was we need to build a bigger building.
Yep.
And so we went to the city and planned to build a bigger building, and it didn't quite turn out how we thought it would.
We began to work with the city to build a larger auditorium. Came down to the last meeting where they were going to give us approval to build a bigger building. The town council voted no. We spent significant amounts of money. What am I going to do? How am I going to face anybody? But our biggest failure, God used to be arguably the biggest blessing to the body of Christ, because we had to think outside the box. His solution for us was multi-site. We planted our first site next door in the annex, and then we planted one in Columbia, and then we planted the West Campus and the Dream Center in Somerville, and on and on and on. So maybe we're right where God wants us right now.
We did have a pretty significant moment in our church where everything sort of changed around the way we do worship. Talk about transition.
A few years ago, I came to a point in my own life where I was dry in my spirit, and as a church, a dryness in our worship of God. I felt like I was alone. And I felt afraid. Can we do this? Is this it? You know, where do we go from here? I know I was at a Starbucks one morning, and a lady said something to me that riled me up. Let's just say I wanted to do some things that probably weren't Christ-like at that particular moment. It showed me that there was something inside of me going on that was bigger than I knew.
The fact that he was willing to acknowledge it. One of Dad's life verses, Galatians 6:9 says, "Don't grow weary, keep doing what you know is right. And at some time, a harvest will come as a result of it." The peaks and valleys of life, it's in the valleys where usually fruit is grown.
And so I went to the Lord and just poured my heart out that I wanted to experience the presence and power of God in a fresh way. It set off about a 6-month pilgrimage for me. God used that wonderful lady at Starbucks that day to send me on a journey that literally would change our church. I went to various places. One of them was on this island that feels like it's the edge of the world in Iona, Scotland. An old, several hundred-year-old little room. And when I went in the room, in the corner there was a cross, and there was a lady in there. She had pinned a little note on the cross, and she was weeping. And as I walked into this place, I experienced the presence and power of Jesus in just a way I hadn't in a long time. I went to the Notre Dame Cathedral. While I was in there, I saw some ladies who were lighting a candle, and as they did, they were crying, and there was the power and presence of Jesus in this place. I went to visit a friend of mine in kind of a, what you call a little bit more demonstrative Pentecostal church. And they anointed me with oil and prayed. And I had a sense of the presence and power of Jesus. And one day, after a sermon, I felt as though the Lord directed me to Isaiah chapter 29. said, your worship is just a list of rules that men have. He said, your hearts are far from me. His desire was to astound the people with his presence. You know what? I want to do that here at Seacoast. So one Father's Day, everything changed. I said, we're going to take time to respond to God, and let's see if he won't astound us as we worship him. And he did. We're going to take some time to respond to God. There's some area of resistance that you feel like is coming against where God is taking you. Maybe you want to go to the cross and just put it there and say, God, I leave it here. I leave it here. And God may be saying something to you today. Love to see you maybe go to the candles and light a candle. Say, may the light of Jesus, the power of the Holy Spirit, really light up this dream within me. Maybe you need to pray with somebody today. And we have prayer teams that love doing that. We're going to receive communion together to celebrate the fact that Jesus died for us, that we could have life.
Oftentimes people will say that they came in and they got a lump in their throat or they began to cry before they even got to their seat. And I think it's just embracing that God's presence can't be really defined.
It's a new day. We choose to trust you, Lord. On the mountain that we face, you are faithful. Whatever the valley, you are still sovereign.
Come on, let's sing how our God is able.
And I think God's called us to more, to the more that all of us know we have inside of us. Change the world.
It's not just about personal transformation, it's about community transformation and to accomplish the mission of God together. The people of Seacoast have been there during crisis, whether that be an individual crisis or a crisis that impacts an entire community. After the devastating shootings in Newtown, Connecticut. Shortly after that happened, we had a weekend where we gave an entire offering away. I think it amounted to like $500,000, and a portion of that went to Newtown, Connecticut.
Lives are changed and transformed. People are living in community together.
The people in this church are some of the first to volunteer and say, we want to make a difference. Seacoasters go on mission trips.
Serving our community and serving communities all over the world.
We started in Central America. We've been in Africa, from Kenya, Togo, down all the way to South Africa. We've spent time in Asia, India, China.
When I became the missions pastor, I felt like we needed to have a greater impact, a long-lasting impact on the world. We found that the communities we were working in were lacking hope. And so about 5 years ago, we coined a term called Hope Epidemic. Let's bring that hope to the world.
So we view our role globally as really building the community.
We saw a lack of clean drinking water.
Get behind the local people there, the local leaders, pastors, teachers.
There was a lack of education.
And do whatever we can to support them, coach them, love on them, resource them.
There was a lack of medical facilities, and in some cases there was a lack of a church.
So that when we leave, the ministry keeps going.
And we've really seen a real transformation in those communities in the last several years.
We have been able to do some pretty incredible things.
Wow, what an incredible experience and a service, and thank you for being here again with us today. We've got a few things we want to let you know about as you leave today.
Seacoast has been awesome. I'm learning new things every day. I have hope for the future. Completely brought joy back to worship.
I know there have been many transitions in the course of the 25 years of our church, and transition is not always easy. Specifically, a couple of years ago, your leadership team, kind of your core group that was helping you lead this place, transitioned out, and all in about the same year.
We had a world-class leadership team at that point. We had Jeff Surratt, who is still considered the foremost voice in the world on multi-site, and Byron Davis, who led us through that time, and Matt Lake, who is looked to all over the world for leadership, and then several other younger guys. All of them either went to do something different, similar to what we do here in another place, or were called by God to go other places to just kind of expand what was going on here. It felt like the team that got us here now was gone. They had done the work. They had led the way through this incredible journey, and they're gone. So what's going to happen next? You've led well, but it's going to be the next generation. Now we come to a place where soon it'll be time to pass the baton. So let me ask you this. How do you feel about the future?
The church now is reaching tens of thousands of people, and I hope that's something that I'll be able to continue to carry on. There's a responsibility that comes with it, though, because never in the Bible does it say we're called to build a big church. It says we're called to make disciples, and so I feel a lot of responsibility towards what are those thousands of people becoming? How are we leading them? How are we growing them? How are we discipling them?
I'm just thinking how grateful I am to be able to be a part of a church that loves their community and also has a love for the world, and just that we can be a part is just amazing.
I stand back on the weekends and watch them all in action. It does your heart good to see them all involved. Enjoying what they're doing and feeling called to do it.
When I think about the growth that Seacoast has had over the 25 years, sometimes I just want to laugh because I think it's funny that God would use such ordinary people to accomplish something that seems pretty extraordinary.
I know who I am and I know who we are, and we're just people.
I just thank God every day that He would use me, just an ordinary person, to do His work and to be a part of this church.
Every week when I pull into the parking lot at Long Point, or I go to another campus, and I see the numbers of people streaming in, I have a lot of emotions. there is an amazing, probably overwhelming sense of awe that God would do what he's done here.
And I believe that if he's done what he's done in the first 25, that who knows what he might have planned for the next 25. I think it's pretty incredible.
I think the future's going to be okay. Since God in his mercy has given us this wonderful ministry, we never give up.
We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed and broken.
We are perplexed, but we don't give up and quit.
We are hunted down,
but God never abandons us.
We get knocked down,
but we get up again and keep going.
And keep going.
And keep going. That's what I want to be like when I grow up. We're getting there, but I think God smiles on us.
And as long as he's alive and well in us, God is very much alive and well at Seacoast. This is what it's about.